Though she doesn't share the same porcelain skin and lifelike features as her cinematic counterpart, the Annabelle doll that lives in the terrifying museum of famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, the pair that worked on the case, is made all the more creepy by how ordinary she appears. Annabelle's stitched features, including her half smile and bright orange triangular nose, evoke memories of childhood toys in simpler times. If you could ask Ed and Lorraine Warren, though Ed passed away in 2006 and Lorraine passed in early 2019,
we're back with real-life ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine Warren.
They would tell you that the stark warnings scrawled across Annabelle's glass case are more than necessary.
I'm Ed Warren. This is my wife, Lorraine.
According to the well-known demonologist couple, the doll is responsible for 2 near-passing experiences, 1 fatal accident, and a string of demonic activities that lasted around 30 years. The first of these infamous hauntings can allegedly be traced back to 1970, when Annabelle was brand new. The story was told to the Warrens by 2 young women and was retold for years after by the Warrens themselves. As the story goes, the Annabelle doll had been a gift to a young nurse named Donna from her mother for her 28th birthday. Donna, apparently thrilled with the gift, brought it back to her apartment that she shared with another young nurse named Angie. At first, the doll was an adorable accessory, sitting on a sofa in the living room and greeting visitors with her colorful elegance. But not before long, the 2 women began to notice that Annabelle seemed to move about the room on her own accord. Angie would often come home to find that the doll had moved. At first it was subtle, like they would find that the doll had just shifted positions from where they last left it, but it started to progress. Donna would sit her on the living room couch before leaving for work, only to come home in the afternoon and find her in the bedroom, with the door shut, and would find it standing up on its own, and even kneeling on a chair, and when trying to put the doll back to the same way, it would just fall. Donna and Angie then started finding notes left throughout the apartment reading, "Help me." According to the women, the notes were written on parchment paper, which they didn't even keep in their home. Furthermore, Angie's boyfriend, known as Lou, was in the apartment one afternoon while Donna was out and heard rustling in her room, as if someone had broken in. Upon inspection, he found no sign of forced entry, but found the Annabelle doll lying face down on the ground. Suddenly, he felt a searing pain on his chest and looked down to find bloody claw marks running across it. 2 days later, they had vanished without a trace. Lou also didn't like the doll very much and warned Donna that it was evil, and one night when Lou was sleeping, he woke up and realized he was unable to move. He saw the doll at his feet and watched as it slowly glided up his leg over his chest, and the doll had started to strangle him until he blacked out. Following Lou's traumatic experience, and after noticing that drops of blood had randomly appeared on the doll, the woman invited a medium over to help solve their seemingly paranormal problem. The medium held a seance and told the woman that the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a deceased 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins.
We learned from her that a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had died in this apartment.
His body had been found years earlier on the site where their apartment building had been built. The medium claimed that the spirit wasn't dangerous and simply wanted to be loved and cared for. The 2 nurses reportedly felt bad for the spirit and consented to allow her to take up permanent residence in the doll. Eventually, in an attempt to rid their home of the Annabelle doll's spirit, Donna and Angie called on a priest known as Father Hagen. He contacted his superior, Father Cook, who alerted Ed and Lorraine Warren. As far as Ed and Lorraine Warren were concerned, the 2 young ladies' trouble truly started when they began believing that the doll deserved their sympathy. The Warrens believed that there was actually a demonic force in search of a human host within Annabelle, and not a benevolent soul. The Warrens' account of the case states, quote, "Spirits do not possess inanimate objects like houses or toys. They possess people. An inhuman spirit can attach itself to a place or object, and this is what occurred in the Annabelle case. The spirit manipulated the doll and created an illusion of it being alive in order to get recognition. Truly, the spirit was not looking to stay attached to the doll, it was looking to possess a human host." Immediately, the Warrens noted what they believed were signs of demonic possession, including teleportation, the doll moving on its own, materialization, the parchment paper notes, and the quote, "mark of the beast," Lou's clawed chest. The Warrens subsequently ordered an exorcism of the apartment to be performed by Father Cook. Then the Warrens took Annabelle out of the apartment to her final resting place in their museum in hopes that her demonic reign would finally end.
Say, is the Annabelle doll here?
Following Annabelle's removal from Donna and Angie's apartment, the Warrens documented several other paranormal experiences involving the doll, the first just minutes after they took possession of her. After the exorcism of the nurse's apartment, the Warrens buckled Annabelle into the back seat of their car and vowed to not take the highway in case she had some kind of accident-causing power over them and their vehicle. However, even the safer back roads proved to be too risky for the couple. On their way home, Lorraine claimed that the brakes either stalled or failed several times, resulting in near disastrous crashes. Lorraine claimed that as soon as Ed pulled holy water from his bag and doused the doll with it, the problem with the brakes disappeared. Upon arriving home, Ed and Lorraine Warren placed the doll in Ed's study. There, they reported the doll levitated and moved about the house. Even when placed in the locked office in an outer building, the Warrens claimed that she would turn up later inside the house. Finally, the Warrens decided to lock Annabelle up for good. The Warrens had a specifically made glass and wood case constructed, upon which they inscribed the Lord's Prayer and St. Michael's Prayer. For the rest of his life, Ed would periodically say a binding prayer over the case, ensuring that the sinister spirit and the doll remained good and trapped. Since being locked up, the doll hasn't moved again, though it's alleged that her spirit has found ways to reach out of the earthly plane. Once, a priest who was visiting the Warrens Museum picked up Annabelle and discounted her demonic abilities. Ed warned the priest about mocking Annabelle's demonic power, but the young priest laughed it off. On his way home, the priest was involved in a near-fatal crash that totaled his new car. He claimed to have seen Annabelle in his rearview mirror just before the accident. Years later, another visitor tapped on the glass of the doll's case and laughed at how silly people were to believe in her. On his way home, he reportedly lost control of his motorcycle and crashed head-on into a tree. He then lost his life instantly and his girlfriend just barely survived. She claimed that at the time of the accident, the couple had been laughing about the Annabelle doll. So, as I did mention before, both the Warrens have passed away. However, their legacy has been carried on by their daughter Judy and her husband Tony. Until his passing in 2006, Ed Warren considered Tony his demonology assistant and entrusted him with continuing his work, which included caring for his horrifying artifacts. Those artifacts including the Annabelle doll and her protective case. Echoing the warnings of his predecessors, Tony cautions visitors of the Warrens Museum about Annabelle's powers. Is it dangerous, Tony has said of the doll? Yes. Is it the most dangerous object in this museum? Yes. And here is even a clip of Tony speaking of an experience with the doll while in its case.
She said, I took a picture in the museum, remember? Oh, you took a picture of me in the museum, remember? I said, yeah. She said, look at the doll's eyes. So I look at the doll's eyes. Now, the entire doll was in perfect focus, and so was the woman. But the eyes looked a little blurred, but I could see eyes behind the eyes. And remember, the doll has button eyes. Just black, like buttons. But you could see, situated behind those eyes, another set of eyes, it looked like, looking to the right at the woman. And then the next photo, where the girlfriend took the photo, also looking on the other side of the case to the left. You know, as an investigator, you try to find out things. The next day, when there was no one around, I went back to the museum and I took about 100 pictures of Annabelle at different angles to see if I could get the same replication of the eyes. I could.
Starting our list right, at number 10 we have Mysterious Origins. I think it's best to introduce this doll by sharing its disturbing origins. According to legend, in the early 1900s, a wealthy American family known as the Ottos committed an unspeakable offense against their young maid from the Bahamas. In an act of retaliation, the maid gifted the young Otto boy Eugene a dog named Robert who had been cursed by a voodoo priestess. In the following years, Eugene would be uncomfortably close to the doll. He would speak to it as if it was a real person and would become violently angry with anyone who just looked at it without his permission. Looking without permission meant that they were being disrespectful to Robert. And on top of that, most of the Otto family friends stopped visiting, claiming to have seen the doll move by itself or having heard it giggle and laugh in the dead of night. The family had enough and decided to send the doll to a museum where many people believe that visiting the doll is a reason for their personal tragedies. And it's to be noted that you should not view it without his permission or take any photos, or else misfortune will find you. At our number 9 spot, we have It's the Same Company that invented the teddy bear. As mentioned before, he was a handmade doll, but many don't know that Robert was built in the same company that created the first ever teddy bear, showing that evil and good can exist in the same place. But this kind of makes me think of teddy bears differently, especially when the company that made the teddy bear was also one who made one of the most cursed objects in the world. The company's name is Steve Company, which was located in Germany. They created the teddy bear in honor of Theodore Roosevelt, but for Robert, they didn't intend to release him at all, and said he was a part of a window display of clown and gestures. Well, I guess the joke's on us. Stealing our number 8 spot, we have Robert is possessed. So it's widely believed that the doll is in fact possessed. They place the blame on the person who originally gave the doll to Eugene Otto, which was the servant who worked for the family. It's reported that she was abused and mistreated by the family, which led her to cursing the doll using voodoo and black magic. The doll would consume Eugene and would often be caught talking and painting with the doll until his death in 1974. The doll seemed to be possessed before his death, but after, it only got worse. And that's where we'll get on to our next point. On to our next point, at number 7, we have Myrtle Reuter. When Eugene Otto died in 1974, his doll and the house were the only things that he left behind. So eventually the artist's house was purchased by Myrtle Reuter, who was also granted the task to take care of Robert the doll. In addition to sourceless footsteps and giggling, Reuter and her visitors reported seeing Robert's facial expressions change whenever his owner Gene was mentioned. They also swore he had the ability to move between different rooms of the house without any help. And her 10-year-old daughter would find Robert in the attic where she claimed he was alive and trying to hurt her. After 20 years, she had enough and finally decided to donate Robert to the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, where he still resides today. On to our next point, at number 6, we have Fort East Martello Museum. Now the doll haunts this small museum in Key West, Florida. It now haunts the entire building, and it's said that school children walking by outside report seeing Robert move from window to window. Staff at the museum claim that Robert has been found in different positions within his case. That footsteps have been heard around the museum at night with no apparent explanation for the noise, and that Robert's expression has been known to change from neutral to nasty in a blink of an eye. Visitors in the museum take precaution before meeting Robert. It's said that you need to speak to him in a polite way. You need to ask his permission to photograph him and to treat him with the most utmost respect. The walls around him are littered with apologies from guests for their behavior. That's literally how much people fear his ability to curse others. This is because many visitors who don't respect Robert claim they face dreadful misfortune, such as getting into accidents, losing relationship, illnesses and disease. So these apologies are actually for good reason. Right in the hump of our list, we have Don't Get Robert Mad. Now that we mentioned that he's currently in the Fort East Martello Museum, I think it's best to know that his terror didn't stop there. It only continued at a grander scale. One Reddit user named Dun Myth was with his wife and son when they decided to take a trip to Key West. They had heard about Robert in the past, so just because they were passing through, it just made sense to take a visit. The man's wife was superstitious and was very nervous when approaching Robert. On the other hand, the man was not nice about it and decided to tease her about it, which in hindsight, he knew that he pissed Robert off. Once they finished, and as they were leaving, they noticed that their car wouldn't start. It's also good to mention that this car was a luxury car, bought new, and was less than a year old. But when the mechanic came, the battery connectors just crumbled because they were that corroded. The mechanic claimed he had never seen anything that bad. This led the husband to walk back to the museum to apologize to Robert. I know, creepy stuff. All the way at our number 4 spot, we have Robert moving his foot. A lot of people decide to record Robert as they visit the museum. Many don't really record anything supernatural, and besides, they are usually stressed because of the conditions needed to visit Robert. As mentioned already, you need to ask permission to take pictures or videos or even talk to the doll. If not, people claim bad luck and negativity in their lives. So here's a video of someone showing Robert the doll. Although it's unconfirmed if they ask for permission, it's super eerie the way Robert just moves. Right at our number 3 spot, we have Robert inflicts pain. Just one more museum encounter for our list, I promise. Reddit user Taiji Lu talked about his tragic encounter with Robert the doll. He was super excited to see the doll. A kid in the candy shop is how he described it. He reported feeling heavy the moment he was in the same room as Robert, and he even claimed to see apparitions in the corner of his eyes. The user took a photo of Robert, and once he started to tell the story to one of his friends, the atmosphere changed and he felt sick to the stomach. As they rode back home on their bikes, the kid would fall off and dislocate his knee, and to this day, he would still blame it on Robert the doll. We're almost done, and at our number 2 spot, we have Ozzy Osbourne. I know it's a bit random, but I wasn't surprised that Ozzy Osbourne had a connection to this cursed doll. Just in case you've been living under a rock, Ozzy Osbourne took over the 70s with his heavy metal vocals and personality. In this series, Ozzy and Jack's World Detour, they decided to pay a visit to the doll. During the visit, Ozzy and his son did apologize and ask for permission, but the doll just didn't seem fazed.
Do you believe in that voodoo?
I think that's some weird
superstition.
After this occasion, Ozzy had a terrible 2019. He took many serious falls, causing many major bruises and cuts. He underwent neck surgery, he got an infection in his hand, and was hospitalized for a flu. He blamed all of this on the cursed doll.
Sorry, Robert.
Sorry, pardon.
So if Ozzy Osbourne speaks, we listen. At our number 1 spot of our list, we have an inspiration from Chucky. One of the most influential horror films of all time is 1980's Child's Play. This starred the infamous killer doll Chucky. Even though he isn't a real person, he is based on a real figure. And you guessed it, it's Robert the doll. These stories have very many similarities. Like Robert, Chucky was a gift to a little boy who at first saw Chucky as his best friend and primary companion. Chucky's tale also parallels Robert's because they are both living dolls who cause chaos wherever they go. Both these dolls are just entities of mischievous deeds. So do you think you have the strength to see this doll? Cause I want to take a flight to Florida and visit this museum to test it out firsthand, but I'm not sure that's a good idea. Starting our list right at number 10, we have The Hands Resist Him. This 1972 painting by Bill Stoneham depicts a young boy standing next to a doll in front of a glass doorway. If you look closely at the window behind the boy, you'll see a multitude of hands pressing against the glass. The boy himself is based on a photograph of the artist at a young age. The glass behind him represents a line between fantasy and reality. And the doll serves as his guide. Supposedly, the art critic that first reviewed the piece as well as the director who put it on display both passed away within a year of viewing the painting. The last person to sell the piece claimed that it was indeed cursed and that the characters within the art piece would move around. And in some odd cases, they would exit the painting altogether, allowing them to wreak havoc on the world. The artist even made a prequel and a sequel to this painting, and both are just as mysterious and disturbing as the next one. Coming at number 9, we have the Untitled Painting. Okay, so you're not supposed to look at this photo for too long, and I'll explain why. So let me just remove the photo. Are you gonna remove it? Okay, guess not. Sorry guys, I guess you can keep your eyes closed until I tell you to look back. This untitled piece is made by Zdzisław Beksiński, and this was a Polish painter who had a very dark style of dystopian surrealism. Beksiński had an obsession with death and he displayed it in the majority of his paintings, and it's said that death shortly after became very obsessed with him. In 1998, Beksiński lost his wife tragically to cancer, and only a year later his son took his own life. So it's safe to assume that his life was filled with negative energy, hence his paintings. It's said that his energy transferred to the paintings because apparently when you look at the painting for too long, it not only gives off an eerie feeling, but may bring you closer to death. And that's exactly what happened to Beksiński, because in 2005 he was found with 17 stab wounds, all because of an argument about $100. I know, scary stuff. At our number 8 spot, we have The Dead Mother. This art piece was painted by Edvard Munch, which is also the same guy who painted the iconic Scream painting. But the Dead Mother painting gives off this incredibly tragic and eerie vibe. I mean, if you can't feel that from just looking at it, just read the name. It said that Munch painted this with the inspiration of his own tragic childhood experience. In reality, Munch witnessed the passing of his own mother and his own sister, only at the young age of 5 years old. Upon displaying this painting in a museum, people have reported a lot of strange and supernatural things. It's believed that if you see this painting in person, the eyes of the girl will just follow you. Others report seeing visions of the little girl in their nightmares, and also see the woman on the bed moving and could hear her bed sheets rustle. When people asked the painter how he felt about the eerie painting, he commented, quote, "Sickness, madness, and death were the black angels who watch over my cradle." Sounds like he knew it was haunted in the first place. At our number 7 spot, we have The Anguished Man. Very little do I think artists should back away from controversial and different types of ideas. I mean, that's just the creative process. But this one, yes, this one, just took it a little too far. This painting by an unknown artist is said to have mixed his own blood into the oils, and after completion, he took his own life. For years, it sat in a woman's attic in England, and she would experience strange and unusual things happening all around her house. After being spooked too many times, she then decided to hand it over to her grandson, Sean Robinson. He experienced similar occurrences, but for years he just left it all alone in his basement until flooding forced him to bring it upstairs. This is where it gets a bit worse. He started to hear whispering, crying, and he would also see a shadowy figure walk around the house, and even his son said it tried to push him down the stairs. Eventually, in 2011, he made a YouTube video documenting the strange things. All the way at our number 6 spot, we have the portrait of Samantha Houston. There's a haunted hotel named Driscoll Hotel with a supposedly cursed painting that was in the hotel. This painting was the portrait of Samantha Houston. Now that you've seen the paintings, I regret to inform you that some people report feeling nauseous or having the sensation of falling while they look at it. So if you haven't done both, you're doing great. Samantha Houston is said to have been the 4-year-old daughter of a former Texas senator. In 1887, her father took her to the Driscoll Hotel in Texas. Allegedly, Samantha passed away when she fell down the stairs playing around with a ball. Now the paranormal activity around the building is blamed all on Samantha. Door handles around the painting shake with no explanation, and a ball could be seen bouncing around in the lobby. Others say that her expression becomes distorted when they view the painting in person. Right in the hump of our list, we have the crying boy. Painted by Italian artist Giovanni Bragolin, it became very popular in the 1950s, and many prints were made as well. Now during the 80s, there was a huge string of house fires where the painting came out unscathed. The whole house would be burning down and plop, there's a fully intact painting still there. Fire station officer Alan Wilkinson personally logged 50 fires where the painting survived, so it's pretty resilient. Rumors then spread that the painting was actually of an orphan who lost his home in a fire. At our number 4 spot, we have the Rain Woman. This is a painting that supposedly painted itself. The Ukrainian artist Svetlana painted this painting all the way in 1996 and reported that the whole time her hand was being controlled by something she couldn't see. She finished the painting in only 5 hours. One person who bought it and returned it just a few days later said, quote, "I dreamed about it every night. She appears and follows me like a shadow." The owners claimed that the painting gave them insomnia, and they even said they saw the woman exit the frame of the painting. She then sold it to 2 other people who ended up returning it back, saying that they experienced supernatural things and felt like their homes were no longer safe. At our number 3 spot, we have the portrait of Bernardo de Galvez. The portrait sits on display at Galvez Hotel in Galveston, Texas. The portrait hangs in one of the hotel's corridors where guests and employees have spotted ghosts in the background of photographs and have felt feelings of being grabbed at the ankle as they walk by. Nothing in the painting screams malicious. He just looks like a regular distinguished gentleman back in the day, doesn't he? But legend goes that an evil spirit found its way into the painting. Many people have claimed they feel extremely cold and uneasy standing near the portrait, and others even reported that his eyes would follow them along the hallway just like all the other ones on this list. That's not even the weirdest thing about the portrait. If you don't ask for Galvez's permission and proceed to take a photo of the painting, the picture will come out blurred and distorted, and is believed you'll be cursed after. At our number 2 spot, we have Man Proposes, God Disposes. This painting of 2 polar bears savagely attacking human remains depicts an imagined episode in the mysterious and grisly tale of Sir John Franklin's 1845 failed expedition to find the Northwest Passage. The painting reveals just how distressing the Victorians found the failure of this scientific expedition and the plight of its crew. It was even said by some college students that one time during an exam, a girl was staring directly into one of the polar bears' eyes, almost like in a trance-like state. Then, the student took her own life in the same room, and when they examined her exam paper, she just wrote, quote, "The bear made me do it." Taking our number 1 spot, we have the Stagecraft or the Hanging Man. The painting shown is an adaptation of a photograph that revealed a hanging man, and for obvious reasons, we couldn't show them it. Artist Laura P. reported to have felt uneasy when painting the picture. When she hung it up on her local business, the workers reported that the painting would move on its own and papers around it went missing. She was then asked to take it back, but when she put it up in her own home, Laura is said to have experienced paranormal activity for years, including an apparition of a headless man. She also claims that it was responsible for a mysterious leak, objects being knocked over, broken items, and even mysterious knocks on her door. At number 10 spot, we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This diamond is one of the largest cut diamonds in the world and is part of the crown jewels of the United Kingdom. However, this diamond has had years of controversy ever since its discovery. For example, this object has been fought over for centuries as the British began to colonize other places in the world. One of the places being in southern India when they fought bloody wars and eventually signed a peace deal with this diamond being part of the deal. Now India wants this diamond back. But do they really? Especially knowing that it's cursed? Because according to legend attached with the Koh-i-Noor diamond, it is considered to bring misfortune to anyone who possesses it. This is because every person known to own it or wear it has been met with a life full of violence and betrayal. Luckily, this only affects men, so this is the sole reason why this diamond is only worn by ladies in the royal family, because if a guy did, they'd probably be somewhere a lot worse. The British royal family were obviously aware of the curse of the Koh-i-Noor diamond, and from the reign of Queen Victoria, the Koh-i-Noor diamond has always gone to the wife to the male heir to the British throne. At number 9 spot, we have the Uluru Rock Curse. In the middle of Australia lies the monolith Uluru, which was formerly known as Ayers Rock. This area is a sacred and historical site for the indigenous, and they highly recommend you not to take one of the rocks from this area. However, after having over 300,000 visitors yearly, some are bound to take a rock for some sort of souvenir. However, the local legend legend goes that anyone who displaces or takes a rock out of the area will be cursed. Some visitors who casually pocketed chunks of the sacred landmark and took them home found that they experienced a series of bad luck events. Some of these visitors were struck by guilt or misfortune, and several hundred travelers each year send their holiday keepsakes back. So you can imagine how bad this curse is if people are literally flying back to this place just to give back a rock. The rocks that were returned were named sorry rocks by park rangers, and they would supposedly receive around 400 rocks a year. That's almost one every single day. I wonder how many people are cursed here because they just took one single rock. At number 8 spot, we have the Swansea Devil. This wood carving of a devil is not only a creepy object, but it carries its devil name with a badge of pride. Located in the Swansea Museum in Wales, this is either called the Swansea Devil or the name the locals give it, Old Nick. This wood carving was created all the way back in 1890s when a church in the area decided to undergo some big renovations. However, the renovations would be put on hold and another outsider would be put on the job, causing many locals to be angered. One local was so angry he decided to buy the property around the church and construct buildings with this wood carving standing on top of it, staring down at the church. The architect is reputed to have cursed the church by saying, quote, "When your church is destroyed and burnt to the ground, my devil will remain laughing." So when World War II hit and a German blitzkrieg hit the area, the church was left down to burn with the devil carving on top of the building just staring down at it. Nowadays, the devil is kept at the local museum where it's said to be facing the direction of the newly constructed church in hopes that it will burn down once again. At number 7 spot, we have the Maori warrior mask. For those who don't know, the Maori people are the indigenous Polynesian people of New Zealand. They were well known for sculpting facial masks prior to fighting in a war. These masks were not only made for art but to honor their ancestors. Any man who passed away during combat while wearing these masks is said to have left his soul behind. Overall, Maori masks were employed to protect a person's soul. Experts have discovered a number of Maori masks that were previously belonged to noble soldiers. They say that the Maori masks are in fact cursed though. The curse itself is not dangerous to men, however for women who are pregnant, they should avoid touching or wearing them since they can bring harm and bring ill luck. A British museum took this warning very seriously, posting signs about the curse to warn women. Maori tradition dictates that a pregnant or menstruating woman is tapu or taboo, and so are the artifacts, meaning that if these two come in contact, a curse would be invoked. At number 6 spot, we have the Goddess of Death statue. Often regarded as the Goddess of Death, this stone figurine was most likely once a fertility statue. Most of its features wore away by the time it was discovered in Lem, Cyprus in 1878, but that didn't stop it from becoming one of the most cursed objects in history. Lord Elephant was the first statue's owner. After a brief moment with the statue, he alongside 6 family members would meet their demise. The same thing then happened to the figure's next few owners, including the last, Sir Alan Biverbrook. He and his wife and his daughters passed away shortly after taking possession of the statue. His remaining sons donated the statues to a museum where the curator would pass away as well shortly after touching it. Now the statue is kept behind locked glass, nowhere close to be touched in the future ever again. Right in the hump of our list, we have the Black Sarcophagus. Archaeologists dug up an ancient black sarcophagus in Alexandria, Egypt, dating around 300 BC. Upon discovery, they had become ever wary of the possibility that the sarcophagus could be cursed. But we are humans and we never learn, so guess what? We opened it. Inside were the remains of 3 skeletons, ancient etch drawings, and ancient sewage water, making this a perfect gift. I'm just joking. There are many drawings of poisonous and venomous creatures around the sarcophagus, making many believe these are warning signs to keep away. And guess what they did? Scientists went through every single bone but had to stop multiple times due to a terrible odor. The worst part about this is that many people actually believe the sewage water found in this sarcophagus was associated with the Fountain of Youth. Number 4, Crying Boy painting. Painted by Italian artist Giovanni Bragolin, this painting became very popular in the 1950s and many prints were made because of it. The boy in the photo was said to be a mute orphan who was crying after seeing his parents pass away in a fire. Well, during the 80s, there was a huge string of house fires where the painting came out unscathed. Coincidence? I don't think so. I mean, the whole house would be destroyed and plop, here's a fully intact painting. Fire station officer Alan Wilkinson personally logged 50 fires where the painting survived. So you could say it's pretty resilient. Eventually the news broke out about this painting, and on September 4th, 1985, the newspaper would be published in a British tabloid newspaper called The Sun, which would try to convince the public that the painting was cursed and was the reason for all these house fires. At number 3 spot, we have Man Proposes, God Disposes painting. This painting of 2 polar bears savagely attacking human remains depicts an imagined episode in the mysterious and grisly tale of Sir John Franklin's 1845 failed expedition to find the Northwest Passage. This painting reveals reveals just how distressing the Victorians found the failure of this scientific expedition and the plight of the crew. It was even said by some college students that one time a girl was staring directly into one of the polar bear's eyes in a trance-like state. Then the student took her own life in the room, and when they examined her exam paper, she wrote, quote, "The bear made me do it." The painting still hangs in the Royal Holloway University in London and is now covered every single year during exams because of this incident. At number 2 spot, we have Leda the Gypsy doll. It's notorious for being one of the world's most haunted dolls, so listen up. The origin story goes that a man in Romania made this doll for his son. The little boy would tell his father that the doll would talk to him and would move on its own. But of course, the father and his wife said that this was just in the child's imagination. Unfortunately, one day, the little boy was playing with his doll near a body of water and he ended up drowning. Now it's said that the boy inhabits the doll. The current owner of the doll, Kerry Walton, said he found it in an abandoned and allegedly haunted building. They found it in a basement and the doll was supposedly child-sized, so upon first sight, they thought it was a child's body. The doll was reported to be over 200 years old, made with wood and real human hair. What? When he brought the doll home, the doll was reported to make the children cry all night because she supposedly talked to each and every single one of them. And she would move around the house freely as well. Ever since the doll, Walton has never had so many strange things happen in his life, and I don't think he's lying about a lot of this. At a number 1 spot, we have Don't Look in This Mirror. The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana is considered one of America's most haunted places, and for good reasons. The most infamous is the mirror that can be found in the main floor of the building. According to the legend, the former owner of the house, Sarah Woodruff, and her 2 daughters were poisoned by their helper, and once they passed away, they were trapped inside of this mirror, supposedly. Visitors of the house reported seeing handprints, strange marks, and even figures dressed in old-fashioned clothes lurking in the mirror. Others report seeing Woodruff's children appear in the mirror near the room where they were poisoned. And one researcher noted that each time the mirror is replaced or resilvered, the same handprint reappears as if they refuse to be ignored. Regardless, mirrors have always been a scary thing for many of us, and this artifact just confirms that we shouldn't mess with some of them. Coming in at number 10, we have the Baker's wedding dress. This dress belonged to Anna Baker, who was a part of a wealthy family located in Altoona, Pennsylvania. They would reside in what is known as the Baker Mansion in 1849. Which is the same year Anna fell in love with a man and planned to get married, but her father Elias was like, no, not happening. It's believed he said that because he was a part of a different social class. He didn't want this marriage to happen so bad, he even got the man banished from town. Anna was heartbroken and begged her dad, but her dad just kept telling her no. She then went out of her way to buy her own dress like the one in the photo, and then showed her father, and he still was very adamant on saying no. So in spite of her father, she never married even till after his death. Fast forward all the way to 1922, all the members of the Baker family passed away and the mansion had been bought by the Blair County Historical Society and turned into a museum. In the museum, guests reported seeing the glass of the dress being shaken violently. Others report seeing a woman apparition in a black dress staring into this display. Perhaps it's Anna from the grave, but we'll never know. Stealing our number 9 spot, we have the woman from Lem statue. Often regarded as the goddess of death, this stone figurine was most likely a fertility statue. Most of its features wore away by the time it was uncovered in Lem Cyprus in 1878. But that didn't stop it from becoming one of the most cursed objects in history. Lord Elephant, no, not an actual elephant. Well, he was the statue's first owner, and after a brief moment with the statue, he, along with 6 family members, would meet their demise. The same thing would happen to the figure's next owners, including the last Sir Alan Beaverbrook. He and his wife, along with his daughters, passed away shortly after taking possession of the statue. His remaining sons then donated the statue to a museum where the curator would also pass away shortly after touching it. Now the statue is kept behind a glass and nowhere close to being touched in the future again. Coming at number 8, we have the Dybbuk box. The Dybbuk box is a wine cabinet claimed to be haunted by a Dybbuk. If you don't know what a Dybbuk is basically a malicious possessing spirit believed to be the lost soul of a person who passed away. This mahogany box was then auctioned off by eBay owner Kevin Manis. It was said that the box had origins to Jews in the Holocaust and would often radiate paranormal activity. It gained so much fame that it even inspired the 2012 horror film The Possession. Just like in the movie, the box contained a Dybbuk and if opened will release a spirit, causing a chain reaction of misfortune and illnesses. Surprisingly, at our number 7 spot, we have an elephant's foot. This is both a curse and a natural phenomenon, and you'll see why. On April 26, 1986, Unit 4 of the Chernobyl plant exploded during a test of the turbine's generation systems.
Some of them will not stop firing for 50,000 years.
The air above the plant was being poisoned, and all the rods inside of the generator started to melt down through its protective container.
I'm pleased to report that the situation in Chernobyl is stable.
This would create a mass known as the elephant's foot. This radioactive blob was only discovered months after, and at this point, it was estimated to weigh around 11 tons and is said to be the most dangerous object on Earth. You don't believe me? Well, here's a fun fact. Well, not really, but everyone who came into contact with the foot or took photos of it passed away shortly after.
You're dead.
To this day, there's no way to get rid of it, so they just built a protective cover over it, and it's just kind of laying there forever waiting for its next victims. At our number 6 spot, we have a cursed number. This wasn't exactly an object, but a phone number. But who knows, maybe the devil has a phone. The numbers 088888888 have been linked to so many deaths that has been suspended completely from being used. The phone number was created in 2001 by a Bulgarian mobile company called Mobitel. And this number was used by the owner and CEO of that company, Vladimir Grashnov. He ended up passing away of cancer that same year, but others suspect he was radioactively poisoned by a business rival. The number was then transferred to a mob boss in 2003. He then got shot and passed away while he was out at a regular dinner with his own family. Then the last person to have this number was a Bulgarian again, but he was a businessman who was then shot and passed away in 2005. Mobitel has now suspended the number from being used forever. So do you think the deaths are a mere coincidence, or is it proof of a cell phone curse? Right in the hump of our list, we have the Belcourt Castle chairs. These haunted chairs located in Belfort Castle in Rhode Island are more commonly known as the salt chair/throne. This is because people used to store salt in this chair as it was a valuable form of trading back then. However, after many years of being in the same spot, visitors would begin to notice that whenever they would go near the chairs, their hands would start to feel cold and prickly. And if someone tries to sit in the chair, invisible resistance could be felt. In one strange case, a man was actually thrown out of the chair when he attempted to sit on it. Legends say the spirit of the owner is stuck inside the chair after he faced a terrible death, which was taking a spear right in the eye. I know, it's pretty gruesome. You probably heard this one, but at our number 4 spot, we have the Terracotta Army. This is a one-of-a-kind 2,200-year-old funerary art. The Terracotta Army is considered the most priceless archaeological discovery of modern times. However, for those 7 farmers who discovered it back in 1974, the warriors have proved more of a curse than a blessing. Soon after the discovery, their farmlands were claimed by the government and all of their homes were demolished to make way for exhibition halls and various gift shops. Upon the 7, one took their own life while the others passed away tragically since they couldn't even afford healthcare. All the way at our number 3 spot, we have the Cursed Mirror. Located in a historical home and former plantation, the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana is considered one of the most haunted places in America. There are many creepy urban legends surrounding the property, but the tale of the Cursed Mirror is probably one of the most famous. According to the legend, the former owner of the house, Sarah Woodruff, and her 2 daughters were poisoned by their slave and trapped inside the mirror. Visitors of the house reporting seeing handprints, strange marks, and even figures dressed in an old-fashioned clothes lurking around the mirror. Coming number 2, and you probably know this one, but we have Annabelle. I know you heard this one, but it's just too good of a cursed item to leave out of this list. For those who don't know, the doll's name is Annabelle, which comes from an alleged girl who possesses it. In the early 1970s, a young college student named Donna gave the doll to Ed and Lorraine Warren, a now famous pair of paranormal investigators. Originally, Donna sold the doll as a gift from her mother, who purchased it at an antique shop. Over time, Donna and her roommate quickly noticed that the doll had a tendency to move around the apartment and be in weird positions like upright and its leg crossed. After more paranormal activity, the girls contacted the Warrens, who decided the doll contained a demon straight out of hell. When an exorcism failed to do the trick, the Warrens agreed to move the doll to a secure location inside of a glass box at their museum in Connecticut. Now, you can go to the museum and check this doll out. Coming in at our number 1 spot of our list, we have the Bassano vase. This vase is a pretty little thing and old too. Casted from silver in the 15th century and produced in a simple design, it is one of the most mysterious and elusive haunted objects of all time. Originally, the vase was a wedding present for an Italian bride who lived in a small village close to Napoli. On the woman's wedding night, she was found slowly passing away on the floor, and her hands were wrapped tightly around the silver vase, and in her dying breaths, the bride vowed to have her revenge and then passed away. Ever since, every single owner of the vase has passed away tragically and in mysterious ways. It was hidden away for some time until it finally got auctioned. Upon looking into the vase, there was a small note saying, quote, "Beware, this vase brings death," was found. It was sold 3 different times in different auctions, but every owner would pass away shortly after, which would pass along the vase from owner to owner. Eventually, it was buried, and now no one knows where it's located.